You can see that this thing is so badly contaminated with dust. There, I'll zoom in. I've got to take the carburetor apart, and a lot of the stuff on the engine is just filled with dust from not getting maintenance for a couple years. So now I've been charging the battery a little while on the battery charger, and I'm going to see, I'm having a little bit of problems with it not engaging in right away. So I'm going to turn the key on. Now we have a little fan that turns on that blows air underneath the engine right here. In the summertime, when it gets in the 90s, it really causes havoc on the engine for all the heat to build up underneath there. So I put that fan in. Now I'm going to try it. Now it seems like we're not getting a good connection on the terminal when I try and turn our starter on. So I'm going to try and wiggle this, see if it helps. So it basically looks like we're having a bad connection on the terminal. So I'm going to break down our terminals and pull them apart, clean them up, our connections. We can see it's kind of wobbly in here. They've got to be snugged back up. Unfortunately, with this type of battery, these are the only terminal caps I could find years ago when I replaced the battery. The battery's about 2.5 years old. Now on this golf cart, these ones are just 7/16, so we're going to break those loose a little bit. Oh, they're barely hanging on. This thing really takes a beating in the summer months. Now after pulling the caps off, we can see both battery posts where our main wire goes in are, I mean, this is our negative, and it's totally almost disintegrated. It was barely getting any kind of connection at all. So that's got to be cleaned up, and we're going to do that next in our next step. Okay, now I'm going to take our cable ends, and I'm going to trim off where it's frayed and bad on the end where the acid infected this, our ground cable for our terminal. That takes care of that one, and then I'm going to do our positive next. So get that off of there. Now we're going to take our box knife and we're going to open the cable back up and get it down to the fresh, clean copper down underneath this our insulation on the wire, like so. Now we're going to open it up. Now I'm going to try and do something different. I put a little bit of our soldering paste on the end of the cable, and I'm going to try and flow this solder paste into the copper and then hit it with some of our solder for plumbing to see if this helps any. Just going to try it. It's always having problems, so. That'll keep the frayed cable together, the strands of the copper, because it just always seems to come undone when it starts to decay a little bit. So now we can see the end here. It's I put the solder on here to hopefully keep it together, so when it goes down into here and we tighten it down, it stays together, but I can already see it start. I didn't get enough solder on it, so I'm going to hit it one more time. I'm going to do both cable ends like this, and hopefully this will keep them from decaying and falling apart, so it doesn't happen so rapidly. Now I'm going to take a little bit of lacquer thinner and put it on a paper towel and neutralize the acid that's on our cables for our battery, so they don't, this will help to keep the corrosion down on here when I fasten them back up. Now I'm going to take a wire brush and clean out the terminals a little bit here really. I'm going to reconnect it back in here so it gets a good connection with electricity. This is our wire connector right here that runs basically the main, a lot of our utilities on the golf cart. I did pick up some new connectors from our local hardware store. You can see them right here. So I've got one here and I'm going to fasten that on. Now I'm going to take some wire dikes right here and I'm going to strip the wire down to where we have fresh clean copper, and then I'm just going to pinch it back on with a pair of channel or a pair of vice grips. Now we're just going to stick that in here. Twist it a little bit so it goes in down into the hole. It just pops in there like that. Now I'm going to take our vice grips and just pinch it so it pinches down good on the wire so it gets a good connection. Okay, that'll just about take care of that. That should have a good connection for a while. Okay, now that we have everything all freshened up, we're going to just tighten our negative terminal back down. Okay, now we're just going to tighten up our our positive cable for our battery. Okay, our terminals are all cleaned back up and connected, and I don't have a full charge on the battery right now, but I'm going to just try it. I'm going to close this a little bit, and then we're going to turn the key on and see if we have power to run our starter a little bit. Now I'm going to take my hand and place it on the pedal right here, and then try and crank it to see if we get a better connection. Okay. So now we see that we've got our battery cleanup job worked pretty well. Now it's not fully charged. Now the next step I'm going to do is start opening up our air filter box. We're going to replace the air filter and the foam element and clean out any debris that's in there. And then the next step, we're going to take the carburetor apart. We're going to pull the bowl down off the bottom of the carburetor and make sure there's no dirt or obstructions or anything in the bottom of the carburetor just to make this so it's not able to start. Now before I break the bowl loose on the bottom of the carburetor, I want to make sure I have a lot of the dirt and the grime off this carb, and I'm going to use a little bit of carb cleaner and I'm going to take my blowgun and blast it off because I don't want the carburetor cleaner falling on the belt that drives the alternator in the starter, because it'll melt it and cause damage to it. So we got to keep this stuff off of here and do this pretty quickly. Now these are original equipment tie downs for the air box for the air filter. I've got rubber bands on it. I've had them for years on here. They only last a couple months. I have to keep switching them. Anybody who's ever had one of these G2s knows that if this air filter box happens to crack loose a little tiny bit on the top, it will create a vacuum leak. The vacuum is connected into the system, and it makes and allows the fuel pump right here to operate. If we have a problem and there's a vacuum leak, your engine won't run properly. So the next thing I'm going to do is start breaking this down, and we're going to clean it out and replace the air filter and the foam element and inspect it, make sure it's okay. Okay, now I'm going to start pulling the rubber bands back. As you can see, I've just put these rubber bands on a couple months ago and they're already rotted. So hopefully our new air filter box tie downs won't fall apart as quickly. But we'll just have to see. I know the original ones, when I first got it, they didn't last long. Now I have to undo this wing nut here on the carburetor. That'll break loose the connector hose where it goes into the carb. It's kind of tricky. Once we've got that loose, and we can lift it out. And we can see it's ready for a change. There's our element. It's pretty nasty and oily. So we're going to put this off. We're going to just throw it in the junk and start beginning replacing this next. Now I'm going to blast out the top of our air box. You can see it's got a lot of dirt in here. Okay, now that we have our air filter box pulled back, we need a 10mm wrench to get access to get the bottom of the carburetor, the bowl off. We're going to just be careful because it's tricky getting the wrenches in here on this carburetor.